It's kind of wild when you think about how much we communicate without, well, actually saying it. Today, we're going to dive into that hidden layer of meaning that shapes our conversations every single day. Let's start decoding what's really being said. Okay, just think about this simple sentence. Someone says this to you, right? It's direct, maybe a little annoying, sure, but there is so much more going on here than just a comment on your timing. So, before you even react to the words themselves, what does this sentence already take for granted? What does the speaker just assume that you already know is true? Well, that hidden layer of assumed info, it has a name: presupposition. And honestly, it's this incredibly powerful and constant force in our language. Once you learn how to spot it, you are going to see it absolutely everywhere. So at its core, presupposition is just the background information that we treat as a shared fact. It's not the main point of what we're saying, but the sentence can't even make sense without it. You can almost think of it as the invisible foundation that a statement is built on. Let's try a really simple example. If someone asks you this, what's the presupposition? It's that you've already had at least one beer, right? That little word another triggers this assumption, and nobody has to say it out loud. It's just understood. Okay, but how can we be sure we've actually found a real presupposition? Well, there's a brilliant and super simple test for that. It's all about seeing what information stays the same, what stays constant, even when you mess with the sentence. The first part of this test is what we call negation. So if you can take a statement and make it negative, basically saying it didn't happen, and that underlying assumption still holds true, bingo, you found a presupposition. All right, take this statement. John stopped smoking. The clear presupposition here is that John used to smoke. But now, look what happens when we negate it. John didn't stop smoking. The presupposition is still that John used to smoke. The fact that it survives negation, that's our big clue. And it's not just negation. The exact same test works with questions. That stubborn, underlying assumption should stick around even when you rephrase the whole thing as a question. And this just proves the point perfectly. It doesn't matter if we state, John stopped smoking, or we ask, did John stop smoking? Both of these versions are built on the very same piece of shared knowledge. John was a smoker. The presupposition survives again. So now that you've got the tools to spot them, let's take a quick look at a few of the most common types or flavors of presupposition you're going to run into out in the wild. First up, this is the most fundamental one. It's simply the assumption that the people, places, and things we're talking about actually exist. If I say this, I'm automatically presupposing that she exists, and maybe more importantly, that she had a turtle to begin with. The existence of the turtle is just taken as a given. All right, next up is all about truth. Certain verbs, linguists call them factive verbs. They automatically presuppose that the information that comes after them is a fact. Let's see how that works. Man, this illustrates the difference brilliantly. Using the word realized presupposes that Kelly was ill is a true statement. It's a fact. But if you swap it for a non-factive word like imagined, it completely flips the assumption. Now it presupposes that Kelly was not actually ill. Okay, this is where a single word can pack a hidden punch. The very choice of one specific word can carry a whole unstated meaning all by itself. So, the main point here is pretty obvious. Brazil won. But the real story, the lexical presupposition, is triggered by one tiny but incredibly powerful word. Again. That single word presupposes that this has happened before, that this is at least the second time. All of that history, that entire prior event, is packed right into that one little word. Sometimes it's not a single word, but the very grammar or structure of a sentence that's set up to assume something is true. And this happens all the time with questions. By asking the question in this why format, where, when, why, the speaker isn't just asking for a location. They are presupposing that you did, in fact, buy a bike. The act of buying the bike is just treated as settled history. Okay, so these are interesting little linguistic quirks, but why do they actually matter? Well, because presuppositions can be used, sometimes intentionally, to totally shape a conversation and even corner an opponent. This right here is a classic example of what's called a loaded question, and it is powered entirely by structural presupposition. I mean, think about it. How could you possibly even begin to answer this?
Yeah, there's just no good way out. If you give a time frame, oh, for 5 years, you've admitted it. If you say, I'm not doing that anymore, you've admitted you used to. The question itself is a trap, and it's designed to make its hidden assumption true just by forcing you to engage with it.
So now that you know how to listen for these hidden assumptions, I promise you, you're gonna start hearing them everywhere. In the news, in ads, in your own day-to-day conversations. Which really leaves us with one big question. What are people presupposing about you, and what are you presupposing about them?